Okay, hi, it's Bunny Says, and we're back. Or I'm back. I closed the windows, it was getting a bit loud. The birds were getting a bit noisy, so let's just continue right where we left off. Today is the first time that I am leaving the palace on a day off. Usually I choose to stay inside. Whereas the other servants always leave to go home, I never see any reason to leave since this has always been my home. And the Marchen has never been home. Besides, it's not as if I want to return. Not after the conversation we all shared last time. Thus, I have spent most of my days asking questions about Mother's reign, inquiring when and where I can. The opinions do not surprise me. Maid A. Alright, there are two maids here, and she's thinking back. This maid is saying, I was so scared of her. One wrong move and she'd have you thrown in prison. Wow. The townsfolk would always wait for her to pass by before leaving their houses. She was a tyrant. The kingdom is a better place now that she's gone. Yeah. Now it's back to Lucette, and she's thinking, there is no reason for them to lie to me. The more I hear, the more my old life makes sense to me. I know why the king never seemed to love Mother and why the people hated her. And the reason people looked at me with such fear. However, it has been months since I have been glared at in public. Well, that's because no one remembers her. If there is one good thing that this curse did for me, it is that it allows me to travel around town without being noticed. As Viorica's shop comes into view, my thoughts shift to the reason I have left the palace in the first place. If Rod will not tell me anything, I will have to ask Viorica. She must be related in some way to his curse. I pause outside the door to the toy shop. With a deep breath, I push the door open. In the toy shop again, and here's Viorica. Welcome! The moment she sees me, her expression becomes confused. Oh, you are the princess's maid, Lucette, wasn't it? I nodded her. You've never come in here alone before. What could I help you with? Hold on, I'm just... I'm looking around the shop and... It's sort of funny, I was looking... Okay, there's just a... in the top left-hand corner, there's a picture of a mermaid there. So it's just sort of interesting. Okay. Lucette, I wanted to ask you something. It is about Prince Rod. Prince Rod? Did something happen to him? Is he okay? He's fine. She sighs with relief. Then what is it you would like to ask? I just wanted to know if you know anything about Prince Rod's sudden muteness. Viorica stares at me for a few moments before she shakes her head. I only know that it happened soon after I met my fiancée, Desamond. What reason do you have for asking? Well, I try to think of a plausible explanation for this, and I immediately consider Emmeline. Viorica is Emmeline's best friend, Surely she would be willing to help if she knew I was doing this for Emmeline. Prince Rod has been very quiet recently. Princess Emmeline has been worried sick about him, but he refuses to say anything, even to her. I have been trying to gather information that might be helpful in discerning the cause. I stare at her expectantly, hoping that my gaze holds nothing but determination. Finally, Viorica smiles. She's lucky to have a dedicated friend like you. I'm still not accustomed to the fact that Emmeline considers me a friend. Before she became the princess, I was her first confidant. We were like sisters. But now that she's living in the castle, we no longer have the luxury of spending so much time together. I worry about her constantly. Even around me, Em has always tended to keep her problems to herself at first. She doesn't like to bother other people with them. It's hard not to agree. With the way Emmeline was always smiling before, I never thought she had any problems in her life. It was only recently that I discovered that she was hiding all her loneliness and pain behind a smile. Viorica. It's a relief that she's befriended someone who cares so much about her. I don't know if I could be much help, but I'll tell you what I know if it will help Emmeline. To start with, I'm not exactly sure how everything changed, but it all happened so suddenly. All I know is that after the night I met Dissamond, our relationship changed. At first he still smiled, but recently he's been avoiding me. What happened between the two of you the night you met your fiancé? Nothing. Rod and I did not meet on that day. Prince Rod wasn't there? No, but soon after what happened that night, Rod grew distant. What happened? Well, it was a stormy night and I was heading back home. I took the route by the riverbank because it was the shortest route. It was foolish of me. The road was slippery and full of mud. I lost my footing and fell into the water. The waves were strong and I was certain I was going to drown. I don't remember what happened in the darkness of the water, only that when I woke up, my head was in Dissamond's lap. That was the first time we met, but not the last. He carried me home and he came by every day as I was recovering. And then he came to visit even after I had recovered. So I tried not to get my hopes up too much because what could this nobleman see in me, a mere commoner? But I still ended up falling in love with him. You have no idea how happy I was when he said he loved me, too. It was a dream come true. Of course, every girl dreams of marrying a prince. It was in all of the fairy tales that I read as a child. None of that was at all related to Rod. How does this relate to his curse? Okay, wait a minute, let's reflect on this for a second. She slipped into the water and... Okay, she doesn't know what happened. She suddenly woke up and Dissamond was there, so... Maybe she was drowning and so Rod, in exchange for her to be okay, yeah, took the curse. Maybe, took a curse so that she could live or something, or, Lucette. You said your relationship with Prince Rod changed after that night. What happened? Viorica sighs. I told Em and Rod about Desamon soon after the incident. Em was happy that the two of us had fallen in love, but Rod didn't say much of anything. That's when I noticed he started growing distant, when I realized he had also lost his voice. He still won't tell me anything, but I figured that he was... Her voice fades, but I know that she is referring to the curse. So Rod lost his voice shortly after Viorica met Desamond. The mermaid's curse must have something to do with the tale. The little mermaid traded her voice for legs so that she could be with her prince. But that night, the only person who found their prince charming was Viorica. Rod's curse must have something to do with Desamond and Viorica. He became distant with her after finding out about Desamond. Why? Then there is the fact that he still spoke to Viorica even if he was distant. It was only when he found out about their wedding that he became so cold. I frown as I try to organize my thoughts. Wait a minute now. Fairy tale. Okay, mermaids. Maybe Desamond isn't a real. Maybe he's like a fake prince or something. Maybe he's a frog. And if Rod talks, then he turns back into a merman or something or other, and so that's why, I don't know, he's like mad that she's getting married to him, or that he's thinking like, I can't believe it's gone that far, or I don't know. Well, okay. Well, I guess we'll find out more. Viorica, how did they get to be this late? I'm so sorry, Lucette, but I have to close the shop now. Sorry for the story. I know it has nothing to do with Rod, but it was after that incident that he began to act strangely. I don't think I was much help, but I shake my head. You have told me what you could. Viorica walks me to the door, opening it so that the both of us can step out onto the street together. Okay, we're in the town square and it's nighttime, so Viorica, I really hope that you're able to help Emmeline and Rod. I hope so too. Oh, okay, some noblewoman is talking. Noblewoman B. Did you see Ophelia the other day? I catch sight of two noblewomen sitting on a bench together, not too far away from the toy shop. They are referring to Ophelia without her title. How disrespectful. Noblewoman B. Who would have thought a peasant like her could almost look like royalty? Noblewoman A. But a dress. As the queen, she ought to be wearing silks rather than satin. I do not know why, but I bristle at the comments. I actually thought Ophelia's dress looks pretty. Okay. Well, what do I know, I guess. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, but the fact that they are speaking so bluntly in public means that they have little worry of being overheard. Noblewoman B. I'm still not sure what the king saw in her. Well, you know what they say about ladies lacking natural beauty. Her talents must lie in other, more persuasive areas. Huh? Okay. She must be very persuasive indeed if the king saw it worthwhile to marry her. As the two women laugh, I feel something hot begin to burn in my stomach. Viorica takes in a sharp breath beside me. Since I became a maid in the palace, Ophelia has been nothing but kind to me, a mere servant. She has all the right to flaunt her status and title, yet she remains humble. I now know that this is why everyone at the palace loves her. Noble woman, eh? Common woman like her can only keep a man's attention for so long. I start walking toward them without thinking. Okay, Viorica. Lucette, I wouldn't... Okay, here we go. Lucette's bursting out here. You have no right to say those things about the Queen. The two women are clearly surprised at my interruption. Both of them glare at me. And you have no right to eavesdrop on us. Eavesdropping? Anyone could have heard you. Their mouths fell open. One of the women looks at me for a long time, then sneers suddenly, as if something has occurred to her. I thought you looked familiar. You're the Crown Princess's personal maid. I see you always following her around when she's in town. This is none of your business, girl. Why do you care so much for our opinion, for our opinions? Noble woman B. Perhaps it's because the girl idolizes the Queen. Thinks she might also go from rags to riches. What? Oh, you do have a point. They stand and advance toward me. Do you want the prince for yourself, girl? If a commoner can become the queen, it's not too difficult to imagine yourself as a princess, is it? Is it? How foolish. You're better off dreaming smaller dreams, girl. They laugh, and the irritation in my chest blazes into full anger. Full-on anger. Is this what Ophelia has been dealing with for the past year? She's being treated so cruelly when she has done nothing but love the king. And I also ridiculed her just like this. I force myself to look at the cruel woman as I move my hand to the pendant around my neck. I was just as cruel as them. Yeah, I do remember she was. She kept saying she was a commoner, not of royal blood, and how dare she marry her father and all this. She's just a baker. I remember her talking about that. I barely feel Viorica's hand as she rested against my shoulder. Lucette, let it go. Her Majesty wouldn't want you to do this. But I cannot just let those two women talk about Ophelia like this. I pull away from Viorica and stand firm. The Queen has a good heart. She's far more noble than either of you could ever hope to be. I think back on the times I was cruel to her. Ophelia could have easily reprimanded me for my behavior. She had that right as my stepmother, yet she has been nothing but kind to me. Ophelia never got angry at me, even despite my treatment toward her and her family. She has always treated others with kindness, even when they are cruel to her. Judging from the bitterness in your accusations, it seems like you are jealous of her. How pathetic. The other woman marches toward me, and my free hand instinctively moves to hold her hand just before her palm reaches my cheek. She grabbed her hand before she slapped her. Okay. I will not tolerate any insults toward the Queen. A soft light emanates from the pendant, and I could only stare at it in shock. I got another good deed? By defending Ophelia? The woman snatches her hand away. How dare a peasant like you talk that way to us? Have you no manners? I could ask you the same. What happened to yours? How dare you? Don't you know who we are, girl? I'll see you pay for your impertinence. Our words have far more weight than yours ever will. I will go to the king myself to tell him about how rude you were. Voice. Okay, there's some voice. I can pass on that message myself. Oh, it's Rod. I turn and see Rod walking toward us, his expression cold. The two noblewomen hastily curtsy. You know, I wonder if these two women are the same two women that were making fun of her Lucette's dress when she was dressed as a peasant before. You know, I just always think back on those two women who were saying like, "Oh my God, her dress is so disgusting," you know. Okay, so but anyway, I turn and see Rod walking toward us, his expression cold. The two noblewomen hastily curtsy. Your Highness. The noblewoman turned pale as Rod's eyes fall on them. Actually, we have an important dinner engagement. Yes, we do. Yeah, you better run. Get out of here. The two noblewomen curtsy before quickly departing. Lucette, what are you doing here without your guards? You... Rod, what trouble have you gotten yourself into now? Oh, we have a choice to either tell him or do not tell him. Oh, if we tell him... Oh, we can't tell him because we were asking Viorica about him behind his back. So, yeah, I think it's a do not tell him time to start lying, I think. It's nothing. If you refuse to tell me what happened, I will have to assume that the noblewoman were telling the truth about you. Viorica, Lucette has done nothing wrong. In fact, I think Lucette only did what you or Emmeline would have done had you heard the awful things those women were saying about your mother. What? She stood up for the Queen when she didn't have to. Then why didn't you just say so? Would you have believed me? Rod drops his gaze from mine. Okay, if I knew it was just about that, I would have said the truth, but I was worried that he would have said, like, what are you doing here? And why are you with Viorica? Which he can still do. He can still start asking that, but... Rod, you never gave me a chance to believe you, did you? Well, yeah, that's true. He would have believed me? How am I to know that? Rod is like a walking contradiction. Rod glances up again, this time to look at Viorica. We shouldn't keep you from returning home, Viorica. I'll take Lucette back to the palace. Viorica's eyes narrow and she looks ready to say something, but Rod has already reached out for my hand to pull me along behind him. When we are out of sight of Viorica's shop, Rod stops, releasing my hand as he turns to face me. Okay, we're in the main town plaza. The one with the waterfall, little fountain. Did you really think I would refuse to believe you if you told me the truth? You never liked me. You have no reason to believe me. Rod sighs, running a hand through his hair. I told you that I would help you break your curse, right? That offer alone should be enough for you to know that I... Rod turns away, suddenly looking embarrassed. I don't dislike you anymore. You're expecting me just to assume that? How would I know unless you made that absolutely clear? Well, I'm making it clear now. Lucette, no, there's Lucette now. I understand. Rod. Anyway, thank you for standing up for my mother. It seems like you don't require my assistance in breaking your curse after all. He gestures to my necklace. Congratulations on your second good deed, Lucette. Yeah, that's right, she got another piece. Suddenly tongue-tied, I find myself looking everywhere but at Rod. When I have once again gathered my senses, I turn to the road. My eyes narrow as I recognize the path we are on. This is not the way back to the palace. No, it isn't. We're going back to the Machen. Why? Because I was on my way there before I was forced to take a detour, because someone was drawing attention to herself. What? Rod ignores me, and we walk the rest of the way to the Machen in silence. Okay. We're in the Machen, in the common room, the reception room. Waltz is the only person in the reception room when we enter. Oh, okay, here's Waltz. You haven't seen him in such a long time. Prince Rod? Princess? It's a little late for the two of you to be here. Rod, I had meant to be here earlier. Is Lady Parfait here? Waltz nods. I'll go get her. Wait here. As soon as Waltz leaves us alone, Rod turns to me, his expression rigid. Rod steps closer and grabs my shoulders. Really? Well, what's that about? It looks like he's yelling. Okay, there's a picture, and he looks like he's yelling at her. He grabbed her by the arms. It looks like he's shouting. He's shouting into her face. I wasn't able to say so earlier because we were out in public, but you should know just how much danger you're in now. And you thought it was okay to go around on your own? You said, it was my day off today. It's not unreasonable for me to want time for myself. Time to yourself. Don't you understand the meaning of be careful? Why would you do something as foolish as going out into town alone? I could not help but bristle at his tone. Why are you so angry? Because you're... Rod trails off and looks away. Because you're family. So you are finally acknowledging me as family? I notice his cheeks turning red. Okay, before we go on, I just want to say, he actually does have a point. If they know that there's a witch inside the castle, her going out on her own is probably a good chance for them to kidnap her or whatever. Assuming that they know who she is. So, okay. I notice his cheeks turning red. Rod, to be honest, you're less of a family member and more just important. Oh God, you know what? I just remembered something. I remember that other person saying, that other conversation where, that she was saying that he is her stepbrother, so, okay, this is getting into a weird situation here. If he starts falling in love with her, then, I don't know, I don't know how that works. Could he, marry her or something? I don't know. Well, they're not related blood-wise, but still, it's really awkward. Important. Because of all that you do for Emmeline. You're important to my sister. He looks uncomfortable as he says the words, and I cannot help but marvel at his embarrassment. Why is he so embarrassed? But Rod changes the topic as he turns away from me. Why were you with Viorica? Uh-oh. I can only think of one reason you'd speak to her. My curse. You thought you'd find out about my curse through her. I shrug. I can only assume that your curse has something to do with Viorica. I look up when Rod says something, then stare at the curious sight before me. He has taken Sebi off his shoulder and is holding the doll in his hands, away from his face. The two seem to be engaged in some silent conversation. Then gently Sebi speaks words that I can hear. Sebi. This is the right thing to do. You need to let her help you, Rod. Rod bites down on his lower lip before briefly closing his eyes. Eventually, he returns Sebi to his usual spot on his shoulder and turns to me. Fine. You're stubborn and you're not going to quit investigating unless I tell you, are you? You're right. Viorica is the reason I was cursed. Rod sits down on the settee and lets out a heavy sigh. His eyes are far away as he speaks to me. This file is getting long. I'm wondering if I should, No, you know what? We'll go on for a few more minutes, and hopefully his story isn't too long, so if it seems to be getting long, maybe we'll stop and break this up a bit. Okay. I was in love with Viorica, but I wasn't brave enough to tell her. I just followed her around like some kind of puppy. One day, Viorica hadn't come home, and it was raining very heavily, so I went out to look for her. I found her walking along the bank of the river. I called out to her to tell her to be careful, but I don't think she ever heard me. She slipped and... Rod swallows. He clenches one of his hands into a fist. She fell into the river. I dived in after her. I somehow managed to get both of us onto the riverbank, but didn't look like Viorica was breathing. I didn't know what to do. I started panicking. I ran off to try to find help, but I couldn't find anyone in the storm. When I returned, she was gone. I rushed to her house, and the doctor was already there, tending to her along with Desimond. Lucette said that. Rod's gaze is vacant as he nods. When Viorica began to fall in love with Desimond, I felt helpless. Did you not tell her that you were the one that saved her? Why would I? Viorica was so happy believing that she and Desimond were fated to be together. I couldn't do that to her. But surely if you told her... Rod interrupts me. I want the people I love to be happy. Well... Okay, hold on, I'm going to reflect here for a moment. I mean, whether Decimon saved her or not, I mean... Eureka seems to have fallen in love with her, so... With him, so... You know... They're happy now, so I guess that's all that counts. And he's right, he wants them to be happy, so... Rod, I don't care if their happiness causes me pain. I'd rather bear that alone instead of bringing down those around me. My chest aches as I watch Rod's face. I never would have guessed that Rod would be so selfless. Rod, but that didn't stop me from thinking that I could still make her love me instead. I decided to become what I thought Viorica wanted most, the Prince Charming of the fairy tales she so adored. No, okay, so here we go. And so I asked the witch to turn me into one. She stole my voice in exchange. Oh. Wait. So... Well, if his mother married the king, then he would have become a prince anyway. Okay, well, let's find out what's going on here. Rod, okay. Only then did I realize that she had inflicted the fairy tale curse upon me, the mermaid's curse. The next day the king turned up at our house, proclaiming that he'd been looking for my mother for years, and that he'd never stopped loving her. Oh wait, so... Oh wow, okay. So maybe the king didn't actually love Ophelia after all. And then that's only part of his curse. Or maybe he did love her, but not that much. I mean, or it was in the past, you know. When the king married my mother, I became a prince. It was just as the witch promised. But it didn't matter. I didn't see it when I made the deal with the witch, but I couldn't be blind to it forever. Now wait a minute, if he breaks his curse, does that mean, like, the king will turn around and be like, you know, not in love with Ophelia anymore, or he marries someone else, or he, like, gets a divorce, marries someone else, and he no longer becomes a prince anymore? Anyway, okay. Rod, Decimon and Viorica really do love each other. They make each other happy. Nothing I can do will ever change that. Lucette. Rod, Oh. Parfait. Oh, Parfait's here, so... Prince Rod? Oh. Parfait pauses in her tracks when she sees me. Have I interrupted something? No. Rod moves over to Parfait, but he stops to glance back at me. I won't be long. Parfait looks at Rod and then at me, her face puzzled, but she does not say a word as Rod and her leave the room. Okay, I'm gonna stop here now. This is... Okay, good. We're switching place here now. We're back at the palace, so this is a good place for me to stop. Thank you for listening. This is intriguing to me. I'm wondering. This is making it much more complicated. I'm wondering what's. I thought the king just always loved the Ophelia, and that he had always been in love with her, and he was with her, and then the witch, the mother, saw him and then grabbed him and threatened to, was would would tell the king that she would kill her if he didn't marry her and all this. But maybe that's a memory that's part of of Rod's curse. So, what happens if Rod breaks his curse? Does that mean, it goes back? Well, the king still. I do think the king loves Ophelia, but I don't know. I mean, if the curse is for him to be a prince, then if he breaks the curse, then he should no longer be a prince anymore. The only way that can happen is if their mother, is no longer the queen. So, well, okay, whatever. It's just something to think about. But anyway, thank you for being here, and I hope things go good for you, and I hope you have a nice rest of a nice day or evening, whatever time it is for you. Okay, I better cut this short now and say thank you and goodbye.